Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning, and I'm awfully glad that you've joined us this morning. We have a lot to cover, and in the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to be talking with our good friend, Kelly Fitzpatrick, just newly reelected as the chair of the Steuben County Legislature. We're going to look at what her first 2 years were like and what the next 2 years will be like. First, if you're on Verizon, I'm glad that you can join us and send in some waves and send in your comments. I understand yesterday there was quite an outage for over 12 hours, not affecting all Verizon users, just some. It says here, we're knocked into SOS mode, and fuming customers were stuck without service for 12 hours. Verizon posting a statement: the outage has been resolved. If customers are still having an issue, we encourage them to restart their device to reconnect to the network. That sounds like my IT tips for people. When something isn't working, hey, restart it. That should do the trick. Verizon continued, for those affected, we will provide account credits. Details will be shared directly with customers. We sincerely apologize for the disruption. It affected about 175,000 people nationwide. Spottiness and coverage began as early as 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for some customers, and the issue gained widespread attention on social media around noon. So if you are on Verizon, you had that issue yesterday, there is no excuse to not text, call, and leave a voice message or send in a wave. I hate to kind of start the program with this, but we had so much reaction on this program and heartfelt messages when we talked about the news of Greg Biffle and his family and that horrific crash, that fatal crash. And it was a heartbreaking tragedy. So many people had really amazing connections with him because, of course, Watkins Glen International and their time at the races. And then you hear this, and it breaks your heart, and it shows you how bad things have become when it comes to morals, to ethics. Heartless burglars broke into the home of NASCAR legend Greg Biffle just weeks after he and his entire family died in a plane crash. These thieves made away with $30,000 in cash. And again, I don't even like reporting on this. This is coming from the Sun. I saw it elsewhere yesterday. Deputies in Iredell County, North Carolina, went to the driver's home on January 8th after receiving reports of a break-in. When they arrived at the property, which had been forcefully entered, they realized the cash had been stolen from a cracked safe. A backpack, some guns, and memorabilia had also been swiped by the brazen thieves. Speaking about the incident, Sheriff Darren Campbell said the home had been secured as recently as the afternoon of January 7th. He said no arrests have been made and the investigation is still ongoing. Quote, we're working on the case. We are waiting on some digital evidence. Wow. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family, and then to have that is just, and again, I hate to kick off the program with that, but as an update from a story that we talked about extensively on this program about the horrific, tragic crash of Greg Biffle's plane, and then to hear that. We do have, we're going to be talking about Iran later on in the program. We're going to talk about Venezuela. And I'm not sure if we'll be able to get to it, but a couple of New York State updates. This first section of the program maybe couple sections, is going to be either breaking news stories, things that I just can't segue to. Maybe updates from past programs, things that just have no real connection to another story. So please, I don't have to ask for your excuse or for your sympathy or to humor me. I'm just saying those don't expect any good segues. But with so much going on in the news as of late, we haven't had too many updates on schools and college campuses. Seemed like, unfortunately, for a very long time, we were talking about the anti-Semitic protests on college campuses. And of course, we had the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and we saw what some professors and some what teachers had to say. Well, that continues at the University of Washington. They're investigating comments made by a researcher there who posted on social media, which sounds like a call for the assassination of conservative voices. Mara Mohan, who uses she, they pronouns, according to her bio on the University of Washington Fuller Labs website. Her description in the microbiology department is research and lab staff. She posted on Facebook in a comment directed at Educational Freedom Institute Executive Director Corey DeAngelis, quote, "May there be Tyler Robbins for you all." Now, if you don't know who Tyler Robbins is, we hate to say his name, but he is the one charged with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. DeAngelis has posted a clip of a Democratic state senator in Washington state with the caption, "He can acknowledge that there are biological differences between men and women." DeAngelis said, this is who the researcher was posting to. So that's what DeAngelis, who's with the Educational Freedom Institute, Corey DeAngelis, posted on social media. DeAngelis said this kind of, and so in response, sorry, I'm making this more confusing than it needs to be. In response, that's when Mara Mohan said, "May there be Tyler Robbins for you all." So DeAngelis weighed in on this and sent a message to Fox News saying, "This kind of violent rhetoric from Mara Mohan and far too many others on the left, wishing for assassins to target conservatives like me and my family, absolutely concerns me, as it not only normalizes political violence, but fuels a dangerous environment where radical ideologies in academia and beyond threaten our freedoms and safety without accountability. I've seen how the left resorts to these tactics when they're losing the arguments on merits, and it's high time institutions like the University of Washington step up to condemn and discipline such hate to prevent real-world tragedies." And, this comes, and let's even bring it local. Look at Congressman Nick Langworthy, who's been forced to shut down his Jamestown office due to threats. And you know what many on the left responded with when they heard that news? They insinuated or came right out and suggested that he was lying about the threats. Now, we've had story after story of threats, of messages like this, and those are just the ones that come across our desk. Who knows how many we've missed? And yet the left is suggesting that Congressman Langworthy isn't getting threats enough to shut down the office. Now, again, that office is full of staff, full of people, caseworkers, there to help you navigate through the red tape of bureaucracy, whether it's your VA benefits, your Social Security benefits, passports, you name it. It's amazing how much they do in a congressional office. It really is. So I think rightfully so, the congressman says, let's not put our staff in danger. These are real threats. And again, the reaction is, oh, there's no threats. What would make you think there aren't threats? You saw yourself the rhetoric, especially in their demands for a town hall, which is another scary aspect. An in-person town hall I would never recommend at this time for any sitting, I would even say Democrat or Republican congressperson. I hate to say that. I know people have disagreed with me extensively on that. Now is not the time. The town halls are not done in good faith. But the reason I bring that up, because we could tie it in locally. These threats and these far left attacks are out of control. Now, again, Mara Mohan, a researcher at the University of Washington, saying, may there be Tyler Robbins for you all. Mohan is employed through a union-based position at the university. A similar position earns around $4,000 to $5,000 a month with benefits. And I guess she had her own office space. I'm not sure. Adam Galletti, the president of Accuracy in Media, an organization that is actively investigating radicalism at UW for several years, says the rhetoric from the liberal-leaning university doesn't come as a surprise, saying UW administrators claim they oppose violence, but their actions speak louder than their word. They've repeatedly allowed both violent violence and violent rhetoric from their students and their staff. The university is already under federal investigation, and now it's time to revoke its funds. The UW spokesperson responded to Fox saying UW Medicine denounces violence against all people and takes seriously the concerns reported to us regarding this matter. We are reviewing the specifics of the situation, including a detailed review of the facts, university policy, and the law, and will determine the next steps. It sounds like that may be so prevalent at UW that is just a boilerplate statement they had in their back pocket ready to go with, doesn't it? There's no specifics. I'm not saying specifics of what was said, but names, departments. So that's one update on universities and colleges and schools. Here's another one. A Washington school district is facing a federal lawsuit after a school board member openly admitted to holding animus towards a Christian program, and officials allegedly forced, listen to this, elementary students to keep Bibles and religious materials, quote, sealed in an envelope and hidden inside their backpacks. This complaint, filed December 18th in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Washington, centers on the treatment of LifeWise Academy, a national nonprofit that provides off-campus, parent-led Bible instruction for students during released times, such as lunch or recess, so they can go and have kind of a Bible study, a prayer session. The legal action brought by First Liberty Institute and Brian Cave Lee and Paisner, LLP, accuses Everett Public Schools in Everett, Washington, of violating the First Amendment by treating LifeWise participants as, quote, second-class citizens and, quote, subjecting the group to onerous standards simply because it is religious. The lawsuit claims school officials barred LifeWise from participating in its community fair and from displaying informational flyers in school lobbies next to flyers for secular organizations. You know your position is iffy when you can't even let someone with a different opinion, and this happens all the time, even have a stand at a essentially a club get-together, club fair, where you can't have the other side even heard. You have to silence them. That's what they did here. And are they both? So both Washington. Interesting. It also challenges a burdensome permission slip policy requiring parents to submit a new written authorization every single week for students to attend the program, as if the parents are going to change their mind and say, no longer do I want my child to say their prayers or to read the Bible. School officials are also accused of forcing students to keep any LifeWise material, including Bibles, hidden in envelopes in their backpacks, making them inaccessible for the rest of the school day, even during free periods when students are allowed to read secular materials, such as comic books. Now, we can only imagine what kind of books they could get from their school library that you or I could deem offensive, which would be okay to, I'm sure, read during study hall. But the Bible needs to be sealed in an envelope in their backpack, hidden away as if it's some type of dangerous material. The lawsuit claims these actions follow a pattern of hostility from school officials, specifically from board director Charles Atkins. In response to a letter from attorneys using the district to address its restrictive policies, Atkins admitted at a December 9th board meeting he held animus towards a Christian group. I want to make it, quote, I want to make it very extremely abundantly clear that yes, I do in fact hold animus toward LifeWise Academy. It is an organization of homophobic bullies who are active and willing participants in the efforts to bring about an authoritarian theocracy. Isn't that interesting when the left uses terms like bullies as they bully other people? In his comments, he also rallied the board to stand up to, quote, Christian nationalism, fascism, and white supremacy, and not allow LifeWise to, quote, further brainwash our kids to be full of hate, anger, and ignorance. Yet, to his point, isn't the only brainwashing that's supposed to be done by the school, by the education system? Isn't that his job to do the brainwashing and get to pick and choose what to brainwash the children with? He doesn't want any brainwashing. Not that I'm suggesting LifeWise is brainwashing, but just to use his term. Attorneys for LifeWise argue these restrictions violate nearly decades of legal precedent. We don't need to get into all that, but just two updates on the education system as we kick off the program. Troubling, disturbing, but I think worth mentioning because the threat of the kind of indoctrination and, to use his term, brainwashing that's happening at the education system. And then we look around, why are these protests in the street? Why are these people getting involved in altercations with ICE? Because they've had, from the beginning of their education to the end of their education, whether that be high school or college, they have been indoctrinated with this kind of far left agenda. And that is a prime example. So there's a couple updates. One last thing. No, I can't. I'm running too late. We've got a lot more to cover. As I said, no real segues, just covering it all this morning. So stay with us. Little snowy out there. Be careful on your way into school or your way into work. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I mentioned the school districts or the schools and the universities on a completely different note. No, it's tied in with schools. Trump signs a law to bring 2% and whole milk back to our schools, so good for our farmers. Quote, today I'm delighted to sign the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act into law, which is a very important thing for our farmers, and I think maybe more important for our people, the people that drink milk. This is the first bill signing of the new year and will ensure that millions of school-aged children have access to high-quality milk as we make America healthy again. He thanks Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins, Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy, and the lawmakers. Now, this is a reverse of essentially Michelle Obama's Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act. Trump said, as it currently stands, schools participating in the National School Lunch Program are only able to offer students low or non-fat milk options. That was changed during the Obama administration. A lot of people disagreed with it at the time. Rollins said that after reversing the Obama-era policy, it is just a matter of weeks before whole and 2% milk are once again available to America's children at school. USDA is posting today the guidance. So we're signing the bill, and USDA, we're moving at Trump time, is posting today the new rule. I like that, Trump time. That it is necessary to get whole milk back into school lunches. It should just take a few weeks, and then the milk starts moving in. Kennedy called the law a long overdue correction to the school nutrition policy that put children's health first. There you go. All right. Oh, as an update from yesterday, we were talking about, I think yesterday, right? Or was it 2 days ago? We were talking about the auto worker who decided to scream at the president of the United States, taking that opportunity, thought very highly of himself, just like the Clintons did. We're going to talk about that next. Thought very highly of himself, saying you have to seize opportunity, and I did that. And he called President Trump a pedophile protector, and that was in reference, of course, to Epstein. We would wonder what he would yell at the Clintons, but again, remember, the Clintons are not testifying in the Epstein investigation because they're fighting for our country. Just like this guy is seizing his opportunity, the Clintons are fighting for our country by not testifying at the Epstein investigation. If you could explain how that is fighting for your country, as I said yesterday, I guess the Clintons for their service, for not investigating. But anyway, so the man who yelled at Trump responded back. We know that. A fundraiser for him was, because he was suspended from his job, has raised more than $222,000. Boy, people have a lot of ways they can waste money. Ford factory worker T.J. Sabula was suspended from his job. So a GoFundMe page was set up for what the organizer called the Patriot, who successfully triggered, I like that they use their terms, Trump. As of yesterday morning, the fundraiser had already passed its $150,000 goal with more than $222,000 in donations. And so they reset the goal at $250,000. The person who created the fundraiser said TJ was suspended from his job at the Ford Motor Company for correctly calling President Donald J. Trump a pedophile protector. Let's rally and support TJ and help him pay some bills. How many bills does this guy have? Anyway, so if you're looking for ways to Boy, this is going to lead to a lot more of it, huh? You're going to have a lot more. Not today. We haven't seen protests in front of Trump before, but we're going to see more people looking for a cash grab by trying to use the left's term, quote, trigger the president. But since we're talking about Epstein, yes, I said yesterday that the Clintons are fighting for our country by not testifying at the Epstein investigation. Even Jon Stewart, the leftist comedian, said that they abso-blanking-lutely should comply with the subpoenas. Remember, the subpoenas that the Clintons received were bipartisan. You'll notice that is omitted in most of the news coverage. I would also add, when it comes to the news coverage of this, it has been very sparse since it first broke. I have not seen a lot more coverage, maybe you have, but a lot more coverage of the Clintons not complying with the subpoenas, could be held in contempt. After being asked if he believes the Clintons, this is Jon Stewart from The Daily Show on Comedy Central, if the Clintons should comply with the subpoena from the House Oversight Committee's investigation, Stewart replied, I absolutely do. He added an asterisk, going on to claim that the U.S. Department of Justice has not met a set deadline to release all the Epstein files following a congressional vote. So he has to still prove his bona fides. But why should they comply if the Department of Justice is not complying with releasing the files? Like, is compliance a kind of specialized individual, indigenous opportunity, or should it be universal? I mean, the Department of Justice has subpoenaed them to testify in the Jeffrey Epstein case while not complying with releasing the files. So how does that comport? But I do personally think they should comply abso-blanking-lutely. Absolutely. And if they've got something to hide or nefarious, yes, we should know about all that. This is bonkers how long this is going on. Absolutely, they should comply, and the Department of Justice should comply. And these victims of this heinous case should finally get some of the justice and peace that they deserve. Now, I don't think, listen, the Clintons, his ties were known to Epstein for a very long time. That's one of the reasons why it took so long for this conversation to even begin, because people knew that it would implicate specifically Bill Clinton. And so that is why it had been, so many other presidents, Obama, Biden, had kept it quiet. Now they think it's a cudgel against Trump, whatever the case may be. But I think it's hard to use Jon Stewart's term, comport, between the coverage of Trump and Clinton in this, and Clinton not agreeing to testify. Just another quick update. A couple other things. I hate to keep saying it, no way to segue. Then we're going to get into Venezuela. We're going to get into, I do have a Greenland update that I think you're going to enjoy. We'll tell you a little bit about Greenland here in just a moment. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Boy, the show's moving fast this morning. We still get to talk to Kelly Fitzpatrick. And I don't feel like we've had any of the breaking news. In Iran, President Trump said the killing has stopped. There was reports yesterday, later in the day, maybe afternoon, that within 24 hours, Iran could be attacked. Interesting. And then all of a sudden, according to the president, the killing has stopped. Sounds as if that person that was going to be hanged, if that has been at least delayed, but you never know with the information you're getting, so that could change at any moment, and a potential attack could change at any moment. So we'll be keeping a close eye on the breaking news throughout the broadcast. But your thoughts on Iran, your thoughts about Greenland, your thoughts about Venezuela. I know we're hitting some kind of outlier issues, but I think still important as updates from past broadcasts and just updates in general. So you are ready for your day, whether that be at work or school. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. We've got some snow flying from our roof cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. What a beautiful view of historic Market Street right here in the Gaffer District. As we broadcast live and proudly from the Hesselson studio, I'm your host, Frank Acom. Let's go to a viewer comment here. Did I miss? I think I missed a couple waves there. I think I did. But good morning. Well, good morning. Just a comment. The Clintons are shady people who are full of themselves and think they are more important than they are. I would agree. At one point, they thought, well, it was interesting because they had some power within the Democrat circles, for endorsements and campaigning and fundraising. And then if you remember, even Gillibrand turned on Bill even after they've always endorsed her. She walked with him in parades, these type of things, because of the Me Too movement. But then it's like that was forgotten. And then he became a quote-unquote star again. I think he spoke at the DNC and all these things. And now you've seen some of the photos of Bill with Epstein and these type of things. So now, again, they are saying, the Clintons, that fighting for our country means not testifying at the Epstein investigation. Okay. Well, don't be mad at me. There's no criticism here. I'm just reporting on the gubernatorial race in New York quickly, because I know we have a lot of Bills fans out there. We get a lot of Go Bills at the end of our comments. We always appreciate that. So there's this new, I don't know if you call it litmus test in New York, apparently, where Hochul and Blakeman are trying to outdo each other with who's a bigger Bills fan. Now, Hochul is blasting Blakeman as a, quote, new fan, where Hochul just seems, and yesterday I think it was Mark who said she's kind of that aunt that's very awkward. You know, we hear her say lingo like yesterday in her or the other day in the State of the State, the full stop, and you know, she tries to make these jokes that land. She would be someone you'd be relatively embarrassed to be with around friends, right? Not relatively, you would be embarrassed to be around with friends. And even with her support of the Bills, we saw it in the State of the State. It's just awkward. It's too heavy-handed. It's forced. But Blakeman might have fallen into that category too. Bruce Blakeman, the GOP gubernatorial candidate, insisted that he's a longtime supporter of the Bills, after Hochul apparently labeled him a new fan. Blakeman said, "I went to the Bills game last week." That must have been, the final home game at Highmark Stadium. "The governor saw me in a Bills golf shirt and said that I was a new Bills fan, when actually my son gave me that shirt for Father's Day about 12 to 15 years ago because I was upset that the New York Jets left Long Island and went to New Jersey. So I've been a Bills fan for a long time." During the game, Blakeman posed for a photo with Sports Illustrated swimsuit model Olivia Dunn and her boyfriend, Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher Paul Skenes. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. But Blakeman, who attempted to make inroads, this is the sad part about this, and I don't want to keep talking about the gubernatorial race in this fashion, in the way I'm forced to do so, but he's trying to make inroads in upstate New York. Folks, our GOP candidates should not have to make inroads in upstate. That should be a lock for them. It would have been a lock for Elise Stefanik. I mean, we would have loved to have seen her and went to fundraisers with her, saw her in parades, but she did not need to spend an ounce of time in upstate New York. She would have focused, or could have focused, her time downstate, because she had the support right from the jump. The fact that, yes, he is from Nassau County, but the fact that he now has to come upstate to prove that he's the right person for the job, that is a lot of wasted time, in my opinion. And now with the addition of Larry Sharp, he does have a real concern that he has to to ease the minds of upstate New Yorkers. That's trouble. That's trouble. But this is one of the ways he's trying to do it. And see if you can see how he might have fallen flat. He's trying to win over upstate voters. So they asked him, the Buffalo News that is, who are your favorite players from the Buffalo Bills? A little gotcha, but fair. He said, my favorite player is Bruce Smith, for obvious reasons. We're both Bruce. Okay. But you can talk about Thurman Munson, Andre Reed, Jim Kelly, and you can go back to Jack Kemp. Okay. Which one of these is not like the other? Remember that old Sesame Street? My favorite player is Bruce Smith, for obvious reasons. We're both Bruce. Is that obvious? Okay. But you can talk about Thurman Munson, Andre Reed, Jim Kelly, and you can go back even to Jack Kemp. It took him a moment. Maybe like it's taking you a moment. I'm not sure. And he said, I meant Thurman Thomas. Yes, he inserted the Yankees legend the Yankees great Thurman Munson in there instead of Thurman Thomas. Not helpful to his argument. And I'm not going to belabor this as if it's some kind of discrediting thing. I just thought it was worth passing along to you. He then tried to play it off by saying, but Thurman Munson was my favorite Yankee, so that's probably why I thought of him. Needless to say, Hochul jumped on this, saying Bruce Blakeman is a wannabe fan who couldn't name his favorite Bills player. New Yorkers know that no matter which jersey Blakeman throws on for the photo op, he only plays for one team, Donald Trump's. That actually kind of fell flat at the end. They had a better opportunity there, Hochul's people, if I could say. Now, Hochul, who grew up minutes away from the stadium in Hamburg, hasn't been shy about her loyalty to the Bills Mafia. She's known to attend games and cheer on social media after the Bills clinch a victory. Didn't her husband have like some connection to his business have some connection to the concession stand? Anyway, yeah, she brings it up as often as she can. She had a Photoshop picture of her diving into folding tables. She told Politico if the Bills win the Super Bowl, she might actually do it for real, jumping through the table, that is. I'd have to rethink that one, but I'll do my best. If they win the Super Bowl, I'll do anything. She has faced heat for doling out taxpayer funds to help finance a new Bills stadium. She agreed to fork over roughly $600 million in state funds in 2022, with Erie County leaders kicking in another $250 million. We've talked about that in the past. Despite the backlash, Bruce Blakeman sat out that pile-on, stating he was generally supportive of using state funds to finance a new stadium. I think that there is a role for the state in economic development, and I think there's a role for public and private partnership. And I think that eventually having the Bills stay in Buffalo rather than move to another city would have a positive economic benefit. So a little tough there for Mr. Blakeman. He's trying. Also, I guess Jack Kemp, not really a deep cut. As a Republican, everybody should know who Jack Kemp is, but not necessarily going with deep cuts of your favorite Bills players. By the way, two quick things, because I'm running late. I know we're covering a lot this morning. Did you see Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said he can't figure out how Donald Trump is so healthy and still standing after his diet of McDonald's candy and constant Diet Cokes? He was asked who has the most unhinged eating habits. Kennedy quickly said Donald Trump. The interesting thing about the president is that he eats really bad food, which is McDonald's and, candy and Diet Coke. But he drinks Diet Coke at all times. This is why I bring it up. He has the constitution of a deity. I don't know how he's alive, but he is. Kennedy said Trump insists the only time he eats junk food is when he's traveling. He wants to eat food from big corporations because he trusts it and doesn't want to get sick when he's on the road, Kennedy said. Kennedy claims Trump eats really good food when he is at Mar-a-Lago. If you travel with him, you get this idea that he's just pumping himself full of poison all day. But he's in incredible health. Yeah, it's been reported he's drinking Diet Coke all the time. He likes Oreos, chips, pretzels, snacks like that. Anyway. The constitution of a deity. And finally, if you haven't had a chance, we're not going to read the quote back and forth. Josh Hawley, not really in favor with Donald Trump right now. And there has been some major questions about Senator Josh Hawley's political views as of late. Not as conservative, perhaps, as he once was. But he had a back and forth with Ashley Moody of Florida about an abortion drug, asking her simply, can men get pregnant? During their questioning, Moody asked, I worded that strange too. Josh Hawley of Missouri and Ashley Moody of Florida went after this OBGYN with the question, can men get pregnant? I apologize, I didn't mean to put Ashley Moody in there. I didn't know the OBGYN's name, which is Verma. Last name, Verma. And I'm not seeing where the first name is. There it is. Nisha Verma. Hawley said the goal is to establish a biological reality. I just want to know, based on the science, can men get pregnant? That's a yes or no question. It really is, I think. I like that Verma pushed back even saying, I don't like yes or no. It's political. Seems like a pretty simple one. For the record, it's women who get pregnant, not men, Hawley said. We are here about the safety of women and science, and that shows that this abortion drug causes adverse health events. Anyway, if you haven't watched that back and forth, because Hawley does, even though politically he's not always in line with kind of the MAGA movement, when he's at one of these hearings, he is fun to watch. I see a lot of comments coming in. All right, we're going to get to real breaking news. When we return, stay with us. We're having kind of an interesting show, covering a little bit of everything, and I'm glad you're a part of it. We'll be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. I see the ICE agent that shot and killed the lady in her car in Minnesota suffered internal bleeding from being hit with the car. So in my opinion, she had a right, or he had a right to shoot her in defense. Yes, it was internal bleeding. That kind of negates the media's narrative and many of the politicians' narrative who have suggested that it was not really self-defense, that it was done in a way to almost, I think it was Ilhan Omar, who almost mocked the agent, suggesting that he ran to the front of the car in a way to look for cause to shoot, which goes to show you what they think about police, federal agents, ICE agents. This is from a different viewer. I couldn't care if Hochul was a fan of religion, which I doubt she is, given that she's a Democrat, but I still wouldn't vote for her. Thank you. I know. That's why I don't like to bring up the Blakeman kind of missteps necessarily, but we have to have the conversation. We have to be fair here, and there are, let's bring up the conversation. Okay. Also, by the way, did you happen to see that another ICE officer was attacked by 3 thugs in Minneapolis? I did not see that it was 3. I saw that a federal agent shot a Venezuelan migrant who was attacking him with a shovel, and it started protests. We're going to talk about this more probably in the next hour. But shot in the leg. So in the past, it's always interesting. The media knowing nothing about guns and defense and those type of things. And some politicians always say, why don't you just shoot him in the leg? As if it's some kind of Western movie where you can shoot the cigarette out of someone's mouth. But in this instance, did shoot, the way I understand it, the migrant in the leg. The Department of Homeland Security said federal agents were conducting a targeted traffic stop when the man, a Venezuelan national, was shot in the leg after he began to resist arrest and violently assault one of its officers. The individual was transported to a nearby hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. In the hours after, demonstrators gathered near the scene, facing off against law enforcement who deployed multiple tear gas canisters, pepper balls, and what sounded like flash bangs before officials told people to go home. Police Chief Brian O'Hare said, I urge everyone that is at the scene to leave immediately, calling it an unlawful assembly. The Mayor Jacob Frey, who has fanned the flames, who have encouraged this. I mean, you've actually had people, not Mayor Frey, but others saying, and I brought this to you yesterday, it worked during George Floyd to burn down buildings in the city. Let's do it again. Well, then you have Mayor Jacob Frey, who was saying that nasty rhetoric to kind of, again, fan the flames. Now, as things get out of control, he said, for those who have peacefully protested, I applaud you. Well, that's all we ask for, an applause from Jacob Frey. But I continue. For those who are taking the bait, you are not helping. You are not helping the undocumented immigrant of our city. We're not helping the people who call this place home. The incident began around 6:50 last night and involved a Venezuelan man who DHS said is in the United States illegally. The man fled the scene in his vehicle, crashed into a parked car, and then ran away on foot. The law enforcement officer caught up to the suspect on foot and attempted to apprehend him when the subject began to resist and violently assault the officer. DHS said 2 people. Okay, so this is what you were referencing. Yes, 2 other people got involved, came out of a nearby apartment and attacked the officer using a snow shovel and a broom handle. After the suspect got loose and joined the attack, the officer fired defensive shots, striking the initial subject in the leg. The 3 individuals then ran back into the apartment building, barricading themselves. Leave it to CNN. Listen to this. The federal government's narrative could not immediately be verified. Now you say, well, okay, narrative is a loaded word. They're trying to discredit the federal government at this point. DHS did not specify how long they were barricaded, but O'Hara said 1 individual was shot during a struggle with law enforcement and later refused to come out of a residence. He was removed by federal agents who made entry into the residence and took the person into to an ambulance. All right. We'll talk more about that in the next hour. By the way, U.S. freezes all visa processing for 75 countries, including Somalia, Russia, Iran. We can't read the whole list. Some of the more interesting ones, of course, Afghanistan, Brazil, Iran, Iraq, Egypt, Nigeria, Thailand, Yemen, many more. You can find the full list. I think it was on Drudge Report maybe this morning. I do have the full list here if there's anything that you really are overly concerned with about visas not being processed for these countries. And like I said, I think those were Jamaica's an interesting one, where Republic of the Congo, Pakistan, Nigeria. All right. A couple quick things about Greenland. We'll talk more about Minnesota. We'll probably just talk about Greenland quick. I'll figure it out during break, and then we'll be right back after this. Let me see. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. I see there's a good quote or a good comment that came in. I'm sorry I didn't get to read it before break. I'll get to that in the next segment, which is coming up very quickly. But one comment from a viewer. Joe Biden is the one that suggested people shoot perpetrators in the leg if you need to. Yes, remember that he gave a couple of tips. Number one, he said buy a shotgun instead of an AR-15. He said that you can shoot from the balcony. If someone intrudes, you can shoot through the door. None of these are recommended. This is what Joe Biden said. And then if you recall, he said, quote, shoot him in the leg instead of the heart. There you are. Okay, Denmark sends military reinforcements to Greenland. Okay. According to report, Denmark is deploying military equipment and advanced troops to the island to prepare for the possible arrival of larger forces from the Danish army and other branches of the armed forces. Now, there was that meeting yesterday with Greenlandic and Danish ministers. Did you see, and I got to say, this is kind of cool, because you would never see this in the United States. Not really. The top diplomats of Denmark and Greenland lit up cigarettes outside the White House Wednesday after declaring their opposition to Trump's plan to acquire the world's largest island. No, it is not the best look. It does look a little bit like, an expectant father, I suppose, out there. Thank heavens it's over. So it didn't. Many people from Greenland commenting online saying, couldn't you waited maybe till it wasn't right in front of the news cameras? The foreign ministers, I'm not going to read all their names, went viral for their solidarity in smoking after presenting a unified front against the annexation of Greenland and their meeting with Vance and Rubio. Lars Rasmussen, whose chain smoking is legendary, appeared to be jonesing as he jogged from the talks to a nearby parking area with a cigarette already hanging from his mouth as he extended a cigarette and lighter to a seemingly nerve-wracked Vivian Modsfeld. Now, so if he's a regular cigarette smoker, Mr. Rasmussen, maybe the 80-minute meeting was really more about needing a cigarette, less about nerves, but not so much for the look on Modsfeld's face. But I don't picture a day where after a big important meeting like the Zelensky meeting, right? I don't see Vance and Trump and Rubio going out into the parking lot and here, want a cigarette? Take one from my pack. Your thoughts on this? New York Post says that Trump's Greenland gambit is a sideshow the forces of freedom don't need. So saying it's kind of a distraction that's not necessary, especially with everything going on in Venezuela and Iran. But it raises fears he'd blow up the Western alliance needlessly, and for all Europe's modern errors, that alliance is one of the history's great successes. Abandon it, to retreat to the American sphere, is tantamount to handing the world's future to freedom's enemies. Rasmussen and Modsfeld left the meeting for some serious chain smoking. If this keeps up, we might be joining them. Your thoughts on that? All right, a couple things about Venezuela. We are going to talk about Minnesota as well. Keep those wow, so many comments coming in. Keep them coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back. broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and I can take a hint. We have great comments, and they're all in regards to Minnesota, which we have not talked much about today. So I could take the hint. We're going to kick off the next hour with that, and we're going to kick off, if you don't mind, just because we're running late here. I'm going to save your comments and keep them coming in. They're great comments. I'm going to save them for the top of the hour. Kick off the program with the second hour of the program with these great comments. We've got 5 or 6 of them. Keep them coming in, though, if you want to be a part of the very first break of the second hour. Just quickly, because this is breaking news from yesterday that is worth mentioning, and also is an update from past broadcasts. Senate Republicans blocked an effort to curb the Trump administration's military actions in Venezuela, which is a major victory for the president, who was incensed that some Republicans tried to tie his hands on this, but there was some kind of late Republican flips that really it killed the effort, I should really say, to restrain Trump's policing power over Venezuela. This was very important. Republicans turned to a rarely used Senate procedure previously used by Senate Democrats in a similar situation to nullify the Venezuelan War Powers Resolution from Senator Tim Kaine. The successful effort came after 5 Senate Republicans joined all Senate Democrats to advance the resolution last week. If you recall, at the time we mentioned it, Trump said that all of those Republicans should never be elected to office again. The resolution was tanked yesterday on a 51-50 vote, with Vice President Vance coming in to break the tie. This was major. It was a bill to try to restrain Trump's power in policing Venezuela, because for whatever reason, the left has found themselves in a position to defend Maduro and a dictator. So it's a no kings rally, but yes to ruthless thug dictators. Kind of confusing. And also the hypocrisy. I know I can't keep talking about this, but the hypocrisy of those that talked about Netanyahu and used the propaganda numbers from Hamas and lied about him as if he was some brutal murderer, and protests in the street with their anti-Semitic messages, and now hush-hush and silent about the protests in Iran or Maduro being captured. It should be positive about Maduro being captured, but it should also be protests about the people being brutally murdered in Iran. It's just all these things, and I bring this up because how the left twists themselves up into a pretzel with their beliefs. It's just, if you were out there protesting Benjamin Netanyahu, where's your protest when it comes to Iran? Where is your celebration against protests against the Iranian regime and standing in solidarity with the people of Iran? And where's your protest in support of the Venezuelan people, and, of course, celebrating the capture of a dictator in Maduro? But this is great news. The Republicans did flip. I don't know exactly who it was, and we are out of time, so I won't be able to find that for you. But it says here, well, not every lawmaker flipped. Senators Josh Hawley and Todd Young proved the decisive votes to help kill the resolution. Also, because I've heard so many people ask about this, yes, Trump has confirmed that the leaker on Venezuela, because remember, the details of the attack or the capture of Maduro were leaked to some media outlets, and we said at the time, that person needs to get in trouble for this. This cannot happen. That put soldiers at risk. Thank heavens, and even Rubio praising those news outlets, which were outlets you wouldn't normally praise, like the New York Times, praising them for not reporting on it. I'll give you his quote when we come back. We can't run late. Stay with us. We'll be right back. But frankly speaking, get your comments in so we can read them at the top of the hour. We'll be right back. And we welcome you to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We're having a great time this morning. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking with Kelly Fitzpatrick. She is newly elected, re-elected, I should say, chair of the Steuben County Legislature. She has served 2 years, and now she gets another 2. We can't wait to talk to her. All right. I had mentioned that Trump has confirmed that the person who leaked the information on the Venezuela strike is in jail. Another piece of information that I think is very important is the leaker has been found and is in jail right now. And that's the leaker on Venezuela, a very bad leaker. adding there could be some others. See, what had happened was, think of how many people this put in harm's way. That means there was people within the administration, like we saw in the first term, that want to see Trump be a failure so bad that they were willing to put soldiers in harm's way. So they leak this to outlets that are not typically friendly or ever friendly to Donald Trump. And luckily, and Rubio gave them kudos as well, luckily they did not report on it until after the capture of Maduro. So Trump saying the leaker had been found and the leaker is in jail and will probably be in jail for a long time. This came after Attorney General Pam Bondi revealed in a post that this past week, the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation executed a search warrant at the home of a Washington Post journalist. The journalist was accused of allegedly obtaining and reporting classified and illegally leaked information from a Pentagon contractor. The leaker is currently behind bars. All right, so as promised, we are going to talk about Minnesota, and let's read these great viewer comments. Morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Did it occur to anyone that Walz and the mayor are using the death of this woman to cover up and deflect from the fact that they are under investigation for the billions in fraud? They don't care what happens on the streets. They tried to save their butts. Well, I'll tell you one person it occurred to, your host of Frankly Speaking, because we talked about it for a couple days, Sergeant Dave. But thank you for letting me have an opportunity to reiterate it. Because yes, if you looked at it, this, especially when it comes to the media did not want to report on the fraud in Minnesota in the first place. They were dragged into it, and we've got more viewer comments in a second. They were dragged into it. So once their hand was forced and they started reporting on it, then the ICE shooting occurred. That's when they could switch gears and no longer talk about the fraud. When was the last time you heard about the fraud, other than conservative outlets, other than right here? So I agree with you. I think that's why Tim Walz, who's not running for re-election but has been so vocal about this, I think Ilhan Omar has been so vocal about this, and because while they are getting to say their talking points and their rhetoric against Trump and his administration, they also are not being asked by the mainstream media, not being asked about the overwhelming instances of fraud in their state and in their city. So yes, I agree with you 100%, Sergeant Dave. We have mentioned it a few times, but just quickly in passing. So I, again, appreciate you mentioning it. Mark writes in, that's funny. Telling officers to shoot them in the leg when they are taught to shoot to kill. A dead man tells no tales. Well, a little ominous at the end, Mark. But you're right. Police officers aren't, you're not being trained. I mean, you've heard police officers say in the past, they never take out their gun unless they intend to use it. They're not trained to shoot in the leg, but that's what the left has always tried to push. This idea, well, Joe Biden's saying, aim for the legs. You don't have to shoot for the heart. It's this kind of fantasy world that they live in, that everything's a Western. Not that they like Westerns, actually, with some of the stereotypes and some of the outdated norms of the day, the old norms, not so in fashion today. So not that they're Western fans, but sci-fi. How's that? Where they can shoot at the drop of a hat at someone's leg. It's laughable, but that's what Joe Biden suggested at the time. Comment from a different viewer. Please mention that the elements of self-defense are imminence, reasonableness, and proportionality in Minnesota. The ICE agent only needed a reasonable belief that he was in danger of severe bodily harm and did not have a reasonable means of retreat. He did not have to be hit nor injured in the incident to be blameless. Some of your viewers and the befuddled news readers on other local outlets don't seem to understand this one. And then this viewer adds on, my previous message on self-defense is for civilians, which is a much more strict criteria. For law enforcement on duty, they can use deadly force even to prevent escape in the commission of a felony, even in Minnesota, which was clearly the case here. This particular incident is truly tragic, but a clean shooting. I would agree. I would also add, just to push back a little bit, I think the comments from viewers have been spot on this. I have seen other news coverage of it, and I would agree with you. It is befuddled. It is questionable how they're reporting. They're pushing it from an activist point of view, where they want these protests happening. Let's face it, the old adage in journalism, it bleeds, it leads. Look at it with the George Floyd riots in Minneapolis. That's the coverage that they strive for, as they say, mostly peaceful protests. And in this case, going back to Sergeant Dave's point, they like it because it gets the magnifying glass off the fraud, which they have proven time and time again in the media and in the left that they support, because they don't want to cut back big government whatsoever. So that would be my only pushback. Otherwise, spot on. But I don't think any of the viewers, I can't remember anybody being too off on this. No, I can't think, maybe. But I don't think so. So that would be my only pushback. Everything else, spot on. Okay, comment from a different viewer. In New York, you can't even shoot. Look, let me take a step back. Sorry. Don't shoot anyone in New York unless they are in your house, and then shoot to kill. Otherwise, you will be liable to be prosecuted and will have to pay for the victim's medical expenses. Even in New York, you can't even shoot someone in self-defense. Remember Bernard Getz. Thank you very much. Well, we got a lot of comments coming in. Keep those comments coming in. We're having a good time this morning. Coming up we always have a good time. Who am I kidding? So Minnesota House files 4 articles of impeachment against Governor Tim Walz. Facing formal impeachment proceedings after Republican lawmakers introduced 4 articles accusing him of corrupt conduct in office, centered on his alleged role in overseeing, enabling, or failing to act on extensive fraud in state-run programs. And boy, I don't want to go through the legalese of this all. There must be so much more there. Because the fact that even his own daughter said there must be something there. His daughter is a far-left activist, very outspoken, if you're not familiar with her, saying on a podcast there must be a lot there for her father to step aside on re-election. But how close does it get to him? Now, it's one thing he kept quiet. He didn't investigate it, because if he would have investigated it, he would have been called anti-immigrant. He would have been called Islamophobic. You get the idea. So they're scared of that. The left is scared of their own party in that sense and their own activists. So he didn't dive into the fraud. Okay. There's that. But how close does it get when you start talking about campaign donations? We've seen that. People are questioning the fact how Ilhan Omar went from being broke in Congress to having $30 million in her bank account. I'm not alleging anything. I'm just saying the questions are being asked by others. I don't know. It's interesting why Tim Walz steps aside. But again, to Sergeant Dave's point, the media is talking about the riots in the streets, talking about the attack of ICE agents and the shooting of Renee Good. They're using that to deflect from, because both stories, when we say deflect, both stories could be covered. But if you notice, they're not. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the program, and a viewer had brought it up, an illegal Venezuelan migrant was shot in the leg yesterday by a federal immigration agent in Minneapolis after he allegedly fled during a traffic stop and beat the ambushed officer with a snow shovel, being joined by 2 others. The suspect was behind the wheel when he tried to get away from federal immigration officers at around 6:50 p.m. local time, but he crashed into a parked car. The migrant then tried to escape on foot and violently assaulted the officer as the 2 wrestled on the ground. While the man continued to struggle with the officer, 2 other people emerged from a nearby apartment and mercilessly attacked the agent with a snow shovel and broom handle. In the chaos, the Venezuelan migrant was able to wiggle out of the officer's hold and also allegedly started striking him with a shovel or broomstick, according to the Post. The officer, fearing for his life, shot the Venezuelan man in the leg. The wounded migrant and the 2 alleged attackers fled into the apartment and barricaded themselves. Federal agents were eventually able to get inside and apprehend all 3 individuals. The officer and the injured suspect were both taken to a nearby hospital, and the 2 attackers were taken into custody. The department said the suspect that they were originally apprehending is an illegal immigrant who entered the U.S. back in 2022. You know, one of the problems with this, and now there's protests in the street, angry protesters swarming the shooting scene. One of the problems, I think, because there was so long, kind of, I'm not going to say started with George Floyd protests, but around that time where there was no repercussions for breaking the law or for these kind of riots that occurred. If you even recall, during the George Floyd protests, that was at a time during COVID when we weren't allowed mass gatherings, and that was allowed. There was no fines. There was nothing done. You were allowed to gather in mass during COVID to protest. So there's never been repercussions. Now, unfortunately, you have people who want to kind of virtue signal, who want to get the most likes on Facebook by proving they're the most aggrieved, they're the most oppressed in some way. So they get on camera, they have their friends take it, or maybe a news camera catches them having a blockade of a street or yelling at a nice officer. And unfortunately, because there has been no consequences in the past, even on college campuses and like that, no arrests made, basically look the other way. The media will even call it mostly peaceful protests. Now, when there has been consequences because real threats on the lives of these officers, now everyone in these protests are looking around going, what happened? Why are we getting punished in some way? There's this delusion, and it's unfortunate, and it's overwhelmingly, as been reported by so many other outlets, a kind of white middle-aged women who have started participating in this and not thinking, almost treating it as a video game, that they're going to be in these protests, they're going to be able to tell their friends they did it, they're going to get around and get their cocktails and get a pat on the back from their far left friends. Maybe they're lucky enough to make the news. Maybe they're lucky enough to get a lot of likes and shares on their social media. And that's what it's really all about. It's not some virtuous movement in most cases. It's really about me, me, me. Look at me, me, me. It's just like the protests on college campuses. So in this instance, unfortunately, too many people are taking it too far. Now, the difference between Renee Good is she was a part of the group I was just talking about. This person was an illegal migrant who was about to be arrested. So his was to avoid capture. And again, being shot in the leg. The mayor slammed, that's Jacob Frey, the destructive protesters, claiming they were taking President Trump's bait. For anyone that is taking the bait tonight, stop. That is not helpful. Go home. We cannot counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own brand of chaos. The hypocrisy and the audacity of Mayor Frey saying that after he has been fanning the flames since day one, as if he didn't know it would lead to this. But I realize I'm running late. We'll read some more of your comments. We've got a quick segment next, and then we're going to talk with Kelly Fitzpatrick, the newly reelected chair of the Steuben County Legislature. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. Good morning. Well, hey, good morning. Here's my response to the left. Please name 2 countries that permit people to overstay their visa or live in their country as undocumented aliens. Thank you. Yes, it's an open forum here. Next comment from a different viewer. I'm going to tell you, I've seen some of these press conferences by Mayor Small Fry and these others. Been watching the people standing behind them, watching the eye rolls. I don't think these people believe that baloney. But yeah, Fry is trying to make a name for himself, that's for sure. Oh, and then a comment, which is more of a kind of a breaking story. Senator Mark Kelly, the leader of the seditious Six, was informed that he will appear before a general court-martial to answer for his actions. I hadn't seen that. I'll have to do some more research on that. But speaking of that, not to change up from Minnesota, but I did want to mention this quickly. How about this for a headline? What party does Kelly belong, says a viewer. Do you mean Mark Kelly, the Democrat senator? Is that who you're referencing? I assume that would be the Kelly. I can't think of any other Kelly that we mentioned. But yeah, Senator Mark Kelly is a Democrat from Arizona. So according to The Hill, Mark Kelly's battle with Pete Hegseth is prompting presidential talk. What? By who? Mark Kelly? It's been seen as a winner for Kelly and those in his inner circle. They said the senator's immediate reaction was, as one person put it, no blanking way are you going to freak me out. We're in the right, and this does not scare me. Tough talk. He's not intimidating me, and he's not going to, Kelly said of Pete Hegseth in a Vanity Fair article, where, of course, in Vanity Fair, he gets a beautiful treatment, unlike Susie Wiles. Anyway, so that's the headline. What's your thoughts on that? Kelly could look good at the top of a ticket in 2028. Kelly was a top vice presidential candidate in 2024 when Kamala Harris was making her picks. Oh yeah, I remember that. That's actually, I think Mark Kelly is actually who they sources said wanted to. Sources said that Obama wanted Mark Kelly to be the running mate for Kamala Harris. Oh, I'm sorry. Fitzpatrick. Kelly Fitzpatrick is a Republican. Kelly Fitzpatrick is coming up here in about 2-3 minutes. She is the chair, newly reelected, of the Steuben County Legislature. We're going to find out what's happening at the legislative level. Yeah, so now I understand. Sorry, Mark Kelly was on my mind because we were talking about that piece, but now I understand what you meant, Kelly Fitzpatrick. Comment from a different viewer. Mark Kelly, now I'm going to get people confused. Mark Kelly, Senator Mark Kelly, from a Democrat from Arizona, who they are saying could be a presidential candidate. This viewer says Mark Kelly lives in Disney World. I would agree. That's typical media. It's a way that they can attack Pete Hegseth. Also suggested he did so bad that has prompted Mark Kelly to be considered front runner because Mark Kelly is doing so good. Unbelievable. So we talked about the ICE agent shooting Venezuelan national in that ambush. Because of that, Minneapolis anti-ICE protesters were hurling fireworks, rocks at officers. Local officials urged the angry crowd to go home and not exasperate the already high tensions in the city. The crowd is engaging in unlawful acts. They have thrown fireworks at police officers, and at multiple times gas has been deployed. Police are attempting to disperse this unlawful assembly at this time, said the police chief. I urge anyone that is at the scene to leave immediately. This is already a very tense situation, and we do not need this to escalate any further. I have faith that the investigators are involved, will follow every lead in this case, and ensure it is completed to its logical conclusion. Anti-ICE protesters also threw rocks, ice, other projectiles. And then you have Mayor Frey saying, hey, you're playing right into Trump's hands. You're the one, Mr. Mayor, that had been fanning the flames of this protest. My goodness, the hypocrisy and the audacity. So the protesters clashing with police. All right, we've got, Tim Walz had a little bit to say about it. We may get to that later on. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. But coming up next, we have our good friend Kelly Fitzpatrick from the Steuben County Legislature, newly reelected to the chair position. We look forward to hearing from her when we return. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. And in that studio, Chair of the Steuben County Legislature, Kelly Fitzpatrick. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It was very nice to be reelected and continue with the work that we've been doing.
A little easier this time.
Much easier.
Yeah. Everybody, you had anonymous support.
Yes, there was
Unanimous.
no controversy.
Yeah.
There was a unanimous vote. There was not a challenger for the position, and it feels really good.
Yeah, and it's kind of nice because having 2 years in a job like that, you're still kind of getting your sea legs.
That is absolutely
right?
correct.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have a better team in place.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some new legislators that I think are going to be great to work with. We hired the new county attorney, and he has now taken his first full term starting January 1st. We also have a new clerk of the legislature. So some fresh perspectives, fresh ideas, and I feel really good about the coming 2 years.
And what does the kind of the new class, if you will, of legislatures? We had so many. I mean, that was tough races on all of them. We had everybody, I think, that ran on the program. How are they taking? I know it's only been a couple weeks. How are they taking to it?
I think they're going to take to it well. Mm-hmm. My mission is to make sure that once I know who is going to be in those new seats, I reach out to them ahead of time. Yeah. I encourage them to look at minutes from meetings, agendas from meetings. I ask them, look over the committees. Tell me which committees you feel passionate or interested in. And I try to accommodate most of those assignments because it is my job to assign committee members. The other thing we do is a 2 or 3 day orientation They get the opportunity to learn about things that are going on in the county ahead of time from the county attorney, different department heads, and they'll also get the opportunity to do some tours of facilities. We did a tour in the fall of the new Public Works buildings where we invested our ARPA funds,
Sure.
and I invited the new legislators that had won their positions already so that they could see this is where we invested the money and this is what they do in these shops. It was great.
When I was talking to somebody about this the other day, the county does do so much and offer so much that even if you run for the job, you may not be aware of everything that the county does.
That is absolutely true. I would tell you, even after all the time that I have been on the county, I have to stop and think, where do we do this service? Who does it? And then a lot of times I just simply reach out to Jack or Chris and ask them, if I have a question about this particular issue, who would you direct me to ask?
Right. And you mentioned that you kind of select the members of the committee. Is that a difficult job? Is that something you look forward to?
It was very difficult. I had 3 drafts of my committee assignments because you don't want to put 3 new legislators on the same committee.
Sure.
You want a mix of the people that have had experience on the legislature plus those new fresh ideas. So it was a very challenging job this year, but I feel really good about it.
Now, looking back at your time as chair so far, what have you kind of learned from day one till today, and what are things that you're most proudest of, you still have to improve on, those type of things?
I think the biggest thing that I have accomplished is that we have been a far more collaborative and friendly group, not just with each other, but with department heads and other elected officials.
Okay.
I don't really want there to be any of these battles. They're not necessary. We can get along, we can treat each other with respect. Everybody has little quirks about how they like to operate.
Sure.
The main thing is remembering that I am the one that is steering the ship. I am the one who is in control of the meetings, and I get to pick the narrative and I get to pick the direction.
Right.
And sometimes, especially when it felt in the first 6 months of the job, I felt like the core team didn't really support the change in leadership. It was more difficult, but now they are very supportive. They've gotten used to the way I like to do things, and now I need to step up and be that confident leader that Steuben County needs.
Well, and that must be their opinion being unanimous. They must say that you've done a great 2 years and you're looking for another 2. I mean, again, I don't want to belabor that point, but that's pretty impressive that no one fought you.
Yes.
You know?
To go from a 9-8 split
Right.
by the skin of your teeth
I
win
should have mentioned that it was
to
that close, yes.
unanimous.
Yeah.
We had to actually count the votes the first time, to the weighted vote,
Yeah.
to see who got the majority, and it was sweating bullets. But the best part was that I had put myself in a mental spot where I said, you know, it really doesn't matter if I don't win the position because I can still accomplish everything it is I want to accomplish. And that is true. That is how I want those legislators to look at me. I don't have any more power than they do.
Right.
I just direct the ship.
Right.
I have control of the steering wheel, and I want them to feel comfortable to come to me whether I agree with their position or not.
Right. And as we said, it's still always a learning curve when you only have 2 years of any job. Is there something you're looking forward in the next year or 2 to improve on?
I want us to focus our energies a little bit different. When we have agendas and we have our committee meetings, we're very focused on the day-to-day operation, and we don't get to be very legislative and look to the future and look at the big picture. We did do a legislative retreat, which was awesome because it gave us the opportunity to hash out disagreements and arguments, but then what can we do as a group to move the county forward?
Right.
So I am hoping to do one of those before our main meeting in January, and I would like us to establish priorities. What is it that we as the legislature want to see the county accomplish, and how do we give the department heads the tools to do that? We tell them which areas are of most importance to us, and you develop your department goals around those.
What, just the other day we had the State of the State by Governor Hochul. So I'm going to ask you as chair of the Steuben County Legislature, what is the state of the county?
The state of the county is actually, it's in a very good position. I know that the audit from the comptroller might have painted a slightly different picture, but we are financially strong. We believe in taking care of the taxpayer. We encourage the shop local doctrine so that your sales tax dollars stay local. We believe in minor or small increases to the tax levy each year. This gives us the opportunity to put money in reserves, which hedges those big expenses that you know are coming. Think about when we had to remodel the public works buildings, and there are other buildings that will need roofs or other major improvements. We're not going to have to jack up our tax levy in order to pay for those things because we have reserves in place to do that.
And a couple, like when we talk about the state of the county, there's a couple things that come up, and you mentioned the comptroller's audit. I know, reading a few articles on it, there was some pushback from some legislators. They weren't necessarily happy with what the comptroller found. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, we're definitely unhappy with it. They indicate that we mismanaged our fund balance, but that's because we have money.
Yeah.
I find it ironic that they chastise us for doing what the state can't do, which is save money and create a balanced budget and stay within the balanced budget. We have done that consistently for years. We have stayed under the tax cap, and our tax rate per thousand is a number that can be, you can present that, and our tax rate per thousand typically goes down. But depending on assessed value and other complications, everybody's taxes typically go up a little bit.
Now, recently at a town board meeting in Irwin, we heard from some residents in Irwin. I know this is, and I'm not trying to get specific to Irwin because it's all of Steuben County, and it's about the kind of the homelessness issue. And there's a lot of people that are outraged that in their community that maybe never had problems before, the hotel that wasn't making it, and then they accept that money from the county to house these homeless people and people that are struggling. I know they're not the only people talking about it. What have you heard, and what can the county do?
There is a very big issue in Steuben County with homelessness. And you're right, it doesn't just affect the town of Irwin, it affects almost every community, except for the outliers where there is really no transportation whatsoever. The Department of Social Services has indicated to us that the numbers for housing homeless people, they're up by 50%. So it makes sense because their expenses are going up for just about every cost of living item that we have. So what we have done is we have established a warming center, which is outside of the Village of Bath. And a warming center is basically rooms, showers available, laundry facilities, and instead of putting someone up in a hotel, they can go to the warming station. We put out a request for proposal for that, and so the company that runs that provides transportation, they provide security, they provide limited snacks or meals to individuals that go there. And so this is our first step in trying to resolve the problem where you have homeless individuals that are going various places in the county, and then you have the issue that they're only able to be there one night and they need to get back to the county in the morning in order to either find more permanent housing or get another voucher to go back to where they were.
And I think that's the struggle, and I know that in some of these instances, and why people in that case are upset, but we've had them talk about it on the program too, that sometimes with it, depending on where the hotel is and what happens, there is kind of the issue of people roaming around or maybe some crimes happening, unfortunately. Is there there's no real repercussions for these towns? There's no way that they can go to you and close the hotel or something like that, though?
I know that in the Village of Bath, they have what's called a nuisance law. And if they have too many calls to any particular facility, they are threatening to pull certificates of occupancy.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not sure if that's legal.
But it's a thought,
It's not for me to comment on its legality. It would be for their legal team to determine that. But it does put a burden on the local communities. And I know the Village of Bath has routinely commented on the burden that's put on their local police force. They're spending so much time chasing down individuals that are either at the hotels or other facilities, and they're causing problems for those of us who like to live by the rules.
And it's also unfortunate, but how much it affects businesses around these hotels in certain instances. We talked about that at the meeting, but restaurants, bars, and things like that struggle when you have people coming in and maybe causing trouble. So
I think we put a lot of money into homelessness and trying to assist people. And I would believe with all of my heart that the majority of residents of Steuben County don't want people living under a bridge, don't want people going hungry or living out in the cold. aside from the fact that it is a state mandate during code blue, if at any point in time during the day the temperature is 32 or below, we are required by state law to house individuals.
Right, and you think about this year, I think every day's been 32 or below.
I would agree. It felt pretty good
close.
out there today, but I know this morning there was frost on the ground, so it was below 32 degrees.
And you raised such a good point on that. I don't want to keep talking about it necessarily because I think we've covered it, but it's not as if people are heartless when they say these things. They're worried about the people. We don't want people living under a bridge, but we have to do what's best for the whole community and find out what that answer is. And I don't know if anybody has that answer.
I don't think we do. You know, one of the things as a priority for the county and the legislature, I want to identify all of our partner agencies and the services that they provide. Right. And we are going to need to tighten our belt. We are going to need to make sure that we are not duplicating any service, and we are going to need to make sure that all those services are a full plate of service and no one individual gets left out.
Right. Now, when you look forward to the new year, here we are at the very beginning, what do you see on the legislature? What do you think will be maybe your major focus or the legislature's major focuses during the new year?
Sure. I think major focuses, obviously, we've talked about the homelessness issue. Mm-hmm. Transportation is a huge issue. Mm-hmm. It's part of our comprehensive plan, and we did that comprehensive plan a couple of years ago, and we really need to look at it and work on implementing pieces of it. The problem is that you have to come up with the funds, and being such a large rural county, it's very difficult, but it's going to be an issue that we have to address. People need transportation, not just for homelessness issues, but we need rides to work. We need other opportunities so people can get the things that they need to do. So that is definitely on my priority list. I think that we need to work on promoting business in the area and economic development. You know, on the heels of Gunlock closing, we are going to really have to play a lot of small ball, and we need to help our small employers. We do have a business roundtable. That was a topic and a program that was developed last year. We have another roundtable discussion that will be going on in Hornell. What we're trying to do is get business owners' perspective on what it takes to start a business in the state of New York and in Steuben County, and what things can we do and put together for them that help them. So that will be a link on our website once we have all the resources that are put together. We have the Steuben County Revitalization Fund that started during COVID, and those are loans that are developed and administered through REDEC. And that's a place where a small business owner who needs some capital can go and get a loan to help them buy equipment or do other things that they need for their business. So we have those issues. I saw this program on a news report, and it was talking about increasing green space. There have got to be lands throughout Steuben County that we own where we can plant new trees and fresh trees and help the environment. I think we need to be a voice to the governor to tell her what programs we like and what programs we don't. We do memorializations, and I realize that they are simply a piece of paper. But if we don't tell her what we think, she doesn't know. We have done multiple resolutions against the CLCPA and the electric mandate because although I understand that she's trying to save the environment, it doesn't do us any good if we don't have the grid in order to provide the electric 100%. Service. And a real serious look at sludge spreading and what it's doing to our environment. We have to have our voice. We have to make our voice be heard.
Well, it's a good thing you have Valino there now. He's Mr. Sludge.
He will be very helpful in that matter, and I see that the Farm Bureau has just taken a stand where they don't want to allow the sludge spreading unless it's been tested for those forever chemicals, and it's forever chemical free.
And you mentioned the energy policy, and it's kind of funny because you said it right after business, because we think about the energy policy affecting us if we want to build a home and things like that, but think of a business who's comprehending, maybe we'll go to Steuben County, and then they look at the laws that are being pushed in Albany, and the cost is so much more than just going a few miles down the road to Pennsylvania.
Yes, I think we're still hearing about NYSEG bills and rates being so expensive. I do books for a couple of fire districts. Their electric bill for the last month was $2,000.
Wow.
So something has to be done. Those things get pushed right back down to the taxpayer.
And they do.
So you talk about affordability, and it doesn't matter if you can get a house that's at an affordable rate, you can't afford the services that you need at the house to live.
And it did seem a little bit like in the state of the state that some of the problems that Governor Hochul is going to fix were some of the problems she and Albany caused.
Yes.
I don't know if you noticed that, but especially when it came to energy policy, I thought, wait a minute, I thought this was your plan in the first place. But you're right. I think it's so heartbreaking about gun lock.
It is very sad. I mean, they've been there for over a century, according to what I've read in the news. And to have that facility need to close. And you look at what they're doing, realistically, they're just moving their operations elsewhere. So it's not necessarily that people aren't buying that high-end furniture.
Of course not.
It's that they just can't afford to produce it in the state of New York.
And that's, I think, what did I read? About 130, 140 jobs? I mean,
Yes. So we'll pull together county resources. We have workforce development. The IDA will work with trying to redevelop the location. So there are some services that are in the background that will assist.
But and I agree with you. I do think now is a great time to focus on businesses, small, large, because I think it's a struggle right now. And I think businesses to get them in New York State, and I think Steuben County should be at the forefront to get them here.
Yes, it's critical. If you have the opportunity to shop at a local store versus buying it on Amazon, you really need to buy it locally. And the reason you do that is because those local businesses are the ones that support Little League. They pay their taxes. They support the school districts. They support everything that we do here at the local level. And I mean, we do have the Amazon facility in Bath, which is wonderful. We appreciate them.
Of course.
But you still need to buy the goods and services locally if you can.
If you can, because if you're holding a fundraiser and you need donations, you don't call Amazon.
No, you do not.
No, you stop here on Marcus Street and you ask for some donations. So you're exactly right. Kelly, thanks for giving us so much time this morning. Again, I want to congratulate you. I can't wait to see what the next 2 years hold. Are you excited?
I am very excited. It feels like a fresh start.
It does.
I know we're going to face some challenges with the federal government and the state government and their budget, but we are ready and prepared to face those challenges, and we'll do whatever it takes.
Great. Well, let's do this again soon. We'll get a catch up, I don't know, a couple months.
That sounds like a plan.
All right, great. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking roof cam as the snow continues to fall. Looks very pretty out there, but be careful on your way into school or your way into work. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and I want to thank Kelly Fitzpatrick. She is the chair of the Steuben County Legislature. I appreciate some of the questions. As I had mentioned yesterday on the program, it was pre-recorded due to each other's schedules and how it all would work out. So the people who sent in questions, I do appreciate it, and they're very good questions, and I'll try to get the answer for you, but I couldn't read them live, obviously, because we had recorded that yesterday. But the questions that the viewer asked was good morning, which, first of all, we're going to count that on the wave. Can you ask the chairwoman how much Steuben County has in surplus money? I feel the people should know. That's a great question. I'm going to try to get to the answer. I'm doing some research right now. And another question from that viewer, can you ask why she thinks 100 properties in Steuben counties are auctioned off every year for back taxes? Again, great questions. I wish I had them yesterday. That's my apology. I should have hit on that. It was being pre-recorded a little bit stronger on yesterday's show, but I'll try to get those answers for you, and we'll have Kelly back on not that long, maybe a month or two. So your questions will be asked. I'm not avoiding them. They're great questions. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Not sure if any viewers watched Brett Baer's interview with Iran's prime minister, but I found it to be very disturbing. And once again, he didn't ask the questions that I think he could have. Why would we trust what they say when everything they promise turns out to be a lie, meaning Iran? I agree. I mean, did you see yesterday that Iran essentially threatened the president with assassination again? And yet we're supposed to believe them? It's very frustrating. Okay. Comment from a different viewer, and we got to take a break already. Boy, we are running late this morning. Okay, my question is, how many of the homeless, this is again in response to our interview with Kelly, my question is, how many of the homeless living in hotels locally, and we all have heard the stories and verified them, are here illegally? How many are here illegally? You can be homeless through no fault of your own because things can turn on a dime in this culture that we are allowing to continue. But I don't feel sorry for those who break the law and put us at risk. That's a great point. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen the answer to that, of how many have been here illegally. If any have been detained in that manner, we'll see. Ken writes in, the protesters and paid activists know that the Democrats will protect them. They know there will be little or no consequences for their anarchy. Just like in the, quote, Summer of Love, they remember the fun that they had yelling at authority figures, breaking stuff, stealing stuff, and burning stuff down with no consequences. They remember the Dems' philosophy on protesting, which was directed to them by Kamala, quote, they won't stop and they shouldn't stop. And with the midterms just around the corner, the Dems are happy as pigs in you-know-what. That they have pigs and poop, he said. That they get, I don't want to make it sound like Ken was swearing. He wasn't. That they can put the focus on the false narrative that the Trump administration is against the people instead of they're on their policies. Let me try that sentence again. And with the midterms just around the corner, the Dems are happy as pigs and poop that they can put the focus on the false narrative that the Trump administration is against the people instead of their policies that foster fraud and abuse to enrich themselves. Yes, now the narrative is being pushed that the Trump administration is going to use these protests and ICE and federal agents to somehow stop, who said it, to somehow stop the midterm elections. I can't remember who it was who said it yesterday. I know that was said on The View, but Senator Chris Murphy, he also said, the chances are high that we could lose our democracy between now and next November because of this. Can Trump federalize these elections? That will be maybe one of the most dispositive moments as we try to make sure that he doesn't transparently rig the election. So there are already election deniers before the midterm has even happened. And Chris Murphy actually saying, I guess he's maybe on one of these betting markets, that chances are high that we could lose our democracy between now and next November. Let's take a short break. Getting ready to wrap up today's edition. This is hard to believe. We are moving fast. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. As promised, when you ask a question, I try to do my best to get the answers for you. And you had a great question to this viewer, which was for Kelly Fitzpatrick, who was our guest. Fortunately, as I mentioned, not unfortunately, it was a great interview, but we had to pre-record due to both of our schedules, had to pre-record yesterday, so I couldn't ask her the question live. But I did some research, dug it up here, asked some people, and the question was, can you ask the chairwoman how much Steuben County has in surplus money? I feel that people should know. So basically, a little over $103 million in the general fund balance, 103 plus million in the general fund balance, and nearly 16 million in road. So there you go. There's your answer. As we talk about the surplus money, and that was what the comptroller's report was really about, and why there was pushback from the comptroller, and then some of the legislators pushback on the comptroller, and the back and forth. But I tried to get that number for you, and there you go. That's what we do here on Frankly Speaking. We got to move some things quickly here. I see some more comments coming in. Get your comments coming in. We'll read them at the last segment. That'll be how we treat the last segment. Tim Walz told Minnesotans to keep filming ICE agents during what is called a glitchy primetime address. Primetime in the area, of course, and it was cutting in and out during his primetime address. It got so bad that the White House tweeted out, "Just resign." He's currently attempting to do a live, highly produced statewide address to condemn the enforcement of our immigration laws in Minnesota, but it's not going well. You're a loser, Tim Walz, and you always will be. Just resign in disgrace, you buffoon. Whew. That's some tough talk from the White House. Also, I do think it's interesting, to Sergeant Dave's point, but something we had been mentioning on the program as well. He's doing these primetime addresses. He's doing these things because it keeps the spotlight off of him and the fraud that happened, and the reason why he's not running for re-election. By the way, the woman who they talked about yesterday in the news that was dragged from a car by ICE agents in Minnesota, she has been ID'd as an LGBTQ and racial justice activist. We're going to see more of this with the activists looking, and it's not my word. You don't have to take my word for it. We had a report on it, and it was from a mainstream outlet where the term they're using is they're looking for sort of martyrs for this cause. Now, we hope that doesn't mean actual martyrs, but just they're looking for bloodshed. They're looking for these type of things to draw national attention to it, and it's very troubling. It's very scary. but I'm not telling you anything that hasn't been reported on in the past. And as a viewer had mentioned earlier, the ICE agent who fatally shot Good did suffer internal bleeding, basically going against what the media has been reporting. We'll read your comments when we return. Stay with us. Getting ready to wrap up today's edition. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comments from viewers. Just a thought, thou shalt not bear false witness. The Democrats and their comrades, the fake news, should be ashamed. Comment from a different viewer. I'm wondering if there are people protesting the people that are protesting against ICE. If not, the media can make it look like the right agrees with them. I gotta comprehend that for a moment. It's too early. I'm wondering if there are people protesting the people that are protesting. Oh, I understand now. Yes, there are. I mean, there's always going to be the counter protest, maybe is a term, but yes, they will inflate the numbers in the media, just like we've seen locally with kind of counter protesters to the No Kings rallies. Those numbers all get put into the No Kings rally. In this case, all the numbers go into the anti-ICE rally. Rick writes in, good morning, Frank. Good morning, Rick. Well, Trump says because of the military options for Iran, the executions have stopped there. I believe the regime running Iran about as much as I do Trump. Interesting. I like that so many people are comparing Trump to Iran. I think that's a very solid argument, and I think it doesn't hurt your argument at all. Both sides are compulsive liars. Trump said about half dozen times that Iran would be sorry if they started killing protesters. As much as I want him to let them take care of their own problems, because we have our own Trump problems. So anyway, Iran is killing protesters, so what are you waiting for, Donald? I can't keep up with it. I understand you're saying you don't want us to do anything in Iran, but you also can use it as a criticism to go after Trump because he hasn't done anything in Iran. You find yourself a sweet spot there. Trump sends the goon squad to talk to Denmark and Greenland's leadership about having them give Greenland to Donald. Doesn't look like it went well, and it shouldn't. You know, they are NATO members on our team. Anything Trump does to take Greenland will sever NATO. Trump should be more worried having to deal with China and Russia without NATO. NATO is the most powerful force on the planet. Don't ruin it, Trump. We live in a broken world. And then the Epstein, yes. Again, we've talked so much about Epstein. Not that I haven't talked about it already this morning, but I understand you don't think Trump's done enough on Epstein. Again, no one had a problem with Biden and didn't do enough on Epstein. I didn't see in your comments, Rick, anything about the Clintons. Fighting for our country, just like our military fighting for our country by not testifying in the Epstein investigation. I'd be curious your thoughts on that. Renee Good's former father-in-law says, I don't blame ICE for the deadly shooting. Democrat Representative Thandar is introducing a bill to abolish ICE because it's beyond reform. Senator Fetterman urges ICE to round up all the criminal migrants. John Fetterman. A voice of reason right there at the end. Well, that does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you again to Kelly Fitzpatrick, chairwoman of the Steuben County Legislature. Don't forget, tomorrow it's Fridays with Phil. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano will be joining us. We'll be talking all about the state of the state. Governor Hochul's State of the State. We'll talk with Phil Palmisano tomorrow on the broadcast. Again, thanks for joining us. Join us every weekday morning starting at 6 for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. Look forward to it already.